Hello everyone, welcome to our first video blog from the AGS Conclave. This is my first AGS Conclave that I'm going to. That I'm attending. It's taking place this week from Monday through Wednesday in Seattle, and it's the 85th annual conclave, which is quite an achievement for an organization. There was someone in the audience today that was at his 50th consecutive conclave. So it just shows you can never stop learning in the industry, and there's always something else that you can gain. But really, it's about from my impression from the first day is that it's about networking and getting to know people in the industry, predominantly jewelry retailers, though not exclusively. There were a lot of suppliers in the audience and among the participants, which so it was a nice mix of people. And really, I think if you want to get to know the US market, it seems that this is a place to be. So it's really an education for me, and I'm excited to be here. So for those who are a bit in the dark about how it works, and coming here as a rookie, I'm a bit in the dark. So the first day was broken up into two sessions in the morning, a keynote speaker at lunchtime, and two sessions in the afternoon. In each session, you had a choice of about 5 different sessions to go to. So you really had to choose your track, and then sort of networking and social events in the evening. There was kind of a reception, and then a quiz night that Hearts and Fire hosted in later in the evening. So I'll start off with the lunch, which was quite an experience. I really enjoyed it, but it was for me as a foreigner and someone who's grew up in South Africa, based in Israel, which are a bit more subdued sort of cultures than the American one. It was very much a woo 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 American sort of, I love it, so good to be a jeweler, AGS, and high fives all over the show, so there was that kind of high energy, feel good sort of factor that they created. They were successful in creating. I don't think it was superficial. It was pretty genuine, and I kind of got into it and even gave a bit of a whoop myself, which took a bit of doing. Even that little segment, even that. But they had beyond all the AGS and jewelers mutual speakers who were different sponsors. That welcomed everyone. There was a keynote address by a guy by the name of Dan. What is his name? Dan Thurman, who's an author of kind of a motivational guy. He uses a lot of analogy of he uses juggling and kind of these high energy gymnastics sort of. He's a 51-year-old guy who's doing these cartwheels on stage, and really but using them as an analogy to how you juggle different aspects of your life to maintain a balance really. And so he got things going. But before, in the morning, there was so as I said, at each session you've got a choice of about 5 different speakers. I chose my first session was with Harold Dupay. I think you pronounce his name. He's a good friend of ours, so I'm embarrassed that I can't pronounce his last name. But he's a data analyst and really a head researcher at Stella, which is a jewelry wholesaler. And he presented a whirlwind tour of the industry, really, using a lot of data about what's going on in the market, and assessing the performance in 2018. His assessment was that it was a good year overall, 2018, that particularly in the first half, or in the first 8 months or so, but then we didn't have the greatest of seasons. But because of the first few months of the first 7-8 months of the year were so strong that it pulled us through, and we had quite a good year. And then he took us through a number of sort of trends that happen, that are prevalent in the market, looking at the jewelry scene, mainly. I'm just looking at my notes. That he spoke about how custom jewelry is growing and it's a big trend in the market. I think he said that 15% of jewelry sales are pure custom. On average, 26% are a mixture of existing styles and design and custom, and then 60% is just existing style that is presented in a retail store. So that was an interesting statistic for me. But it's growing. The custom aspect of that is growing. He said that the 2018 was probably the best year for jewelry in about 15 years. Such was the strength of the first half of the year. But it slowed down in over the holiday season, unfortunately, and that was an interesting aspect of his talk. That he said that the holiday season is actually shortening. We're seeing less of a reliance on sales during the holiday season, which means that sales are generally spread out throughout the year more. But overall, he asked the question to people in the audience, which I thought was quite interesting, whether they think the industry is either A, in a good position, healthy and growing, B, flat, and C, in a negative growth phase, not in a good state. And it was pretty split, actually. I would say probably if I remember correctly, I think I put my hand up for flat. That it was, and I think that was pretty much the sentiment. But he concluded that the industry is in a good state, and that was kind of a light bulb moment for me. That yeah, he's right. That there is growth. That there is growth. And the cute sort of catchphrase that he used was that while the stores close, the market grows. That there is this consolidation amongst retailers. We know that that jewelers are closing up shop, but it's not necessarily because of financial distress. It's more that they just reaching retirement and locking their doors. But overall, the market is growing. So retail is changing the way. The avenues that people use to sell their jewelry is changing, and he went into a bit of detail on that. Then the second session that I went to was hosted by Jewelers of America, who gave an update on their generic marketing campaign, which I think is going to be quite interesting. I didn't actually. I kind of underestimated the extent to the plans that they have. Jewelers, so they gave a bit of insight into what they're planning. They're planning to do a test run on the campaign in the summer, in the late summer, and in LA. They're still trying to raise money for the campaign. I think they've got $200,000 out of $300,000 that they need to run their test campaign. And once they've done the test, they'll extend that to a nationwide campaign that will require a much bigger budget. But it's quite interesting, the themes that their theme is to push female self-purchases, which has been a strong theme in the industry over the last 2 or 3 years, and is a growth segment for the market. So I think it's probably smart that they're targeting LA. Why? Because among other reasons, there is it's a very fashion forward. It's quite a fashion forward market. There's a lot of JA members, Jewelers of America members in LA, and it's a high income segment as well, among other reasons that they gave. So that's something to look forward to in the coming years, in the coming months actually, to see how that category marketing from a U.S. jewelry trade organization essentially, how it handles or how it rolls out and how it's accepted and adopted by the trade. Really, as one of the JA crew sort of stressed, that it's really going to require a united effort from the industry. So we'll see if we're up to it. I think we are. So those were the morning sessions. The afternoon sessions that I went to was the first one was a presentation by Forevermark by Charles Stanley, who is the head of Forevermark's United States, and he gave his sort of similar to Harold, similar to the earlier session from Stella, his take on the market, and he had kind of similar assessment of how 2018 was, that it was a relatively good year for the market, but he was quite bearish actually about the macroeconomic scenario, saying that the US is due for a slowdown. We've had a number of years of consecutive growth, and so cyclically at least we should expect some sort of a slowdown economically, and so while there is expected to be continued growth, the pace of growth is expected to slow in the coming years. He said that overall for 2019, general retail sales expected to grow by 4.4%, and jewelry is expected to grow by 3.5%. So it's a bit lower than the average. So his outlook, and he looked at globally. He was looking at the impact of Brexit, of US-China trade relations, in coming to gas prices, housing market, it's consumer confidence in general. He's expecting a bit of a slowdown, and I'm not sure if you can really argue with that. So he also made the same point as we mentioned earlier, that the season is getting shorter, and that we rely on Christmas holiday sales less than we used to, which I actually think is quite a positive development for the industry. It needs to be a more consistent sales pitch throughout the year, rather than this just promotional sales blitz in November, December. I think we need to have this more consistent message about us. So, what else did Charles Stanley say? He mentioned, he spoke about how sales channels are changing, in terms of luxury consumer trends. That online is obviously an important channel, but physical stores are having varying success actually. He mentioned, interestingly, which was a point that I hadn't really thought about, but it makes sense to me, that these single product stores seem to be able to provide a better experience for consumers than multiple product stores, and that kind of it seems consistent with what seems to be happening with Forevermark, because Forevermark seems to be trending towards these single product Forevermark branded stores, not run by Forever Mark, run by Forever Mark's retail partners, but it's just a Forever Mark store. So whether they can provide that experience or not is, I think, remains to be seen. So so he touched on the different avenues or sales avenues and channels that we can expect moving forward for the luxury market. And then he spoke about the growth areas globally for the diamond jewelry industry, being millennials, the millennials and Chinese consumers as well, and Chinese millennials, I think, are a source of growth for the market. But we're in the US, and he was talking to a US audience, and certainly that US, particularly millennials, female self-purchaser, is a strong growth driver for the industry. So it's that young woman consumer from age 18 to 34 accounts for about half of diamond jewelry market share, which was quite a number, that according to De Beers research, and it's half diamond jewelry sales, but they're only accounting for about a third of the population. So they're sort of punching above their weight, is the message that we got from them. And why are they important? Because they are our future brides. You start with the self-purchase and then move into the bridal market, and that's where Forever Mark is heading towards. Is that this year they're going to be rolling out their first bridal campaign in 20 years. He made a point that it's the first bridal campaign since their shadow campaign 20 years ago. If you YouTube, it's a fun exercise if you're into old ads and seeing how advertising has changed in the last over the years. Those De Beers Shadows ads are quite an education. So that was Charles Stanley. And he spoke a bit about their rollout of the bridal campaign, and why and how marriage has changed, the attitude towards marriage, and interesting. They are calling their new collection. It's not bridal. It's engagement and commitment. Which is a similar language that we've heard before from the likes of Tiffany. They're not referring to marriage and weddings in the same way as they would have, a decade ago. It's about commitment, which means that you don't have to get married. It's opening the bridal market to the non-bride. It's opening the bridal market to the non-wedding market, that millennials may choose not to get married, but they're making a commitment to each other. But that shouldn't exclude diamond jewelry. So the final session I went to for today was by James Shigley, who's the head of research, I think that's his title, at the GIA, and he gave an update on some of the research and sort of projects that their gemologists are involved in. And it's quite interesting. The GIA has quite an extensive research department. He counted, I think, 22 PhDs amongst around 50 people who are working in their research. And his emphasis was really on the idea of source of origin. Speaking about gemstones predominantly, saying that it seemed that on certain gemstones they're at a point where they can take a polished gemstone and recognize the country that that stone came from. We don't have the same ability amongst diamonds. We know that the GIA has launched its diamond origin report, which gives the country of origin on the grading report, but that requires an assessment of the rough before it's polished, and then assessment of the same polished, and then they're able to tie the two together and be able to tell on the report, or say on the state on the report, where the diamond comes from. He said that it's very unlikely that we would get to a point where you could look at the polished diamond and say automatically where that diamond comes from. So I thought that was quite interesting that you're able to do that for gemstones, but he doesn't see that possibility for diamonds. Amongst the more interesting, so that was one thing that he spoke about from the GA. The GA is also doing some interesting work in African countries, teaching artisanal miners about geology and gemology, and which goes a long way to uplift the artisanal mining sector. I thought it was really, really good work that's going beyond the language barriers that they might have. It's some interesting work, and if they can make inroads to explain to those miners the value of the goods that they're recovering, it will go a long way to improving their lives, I think, and understanding what they can get from those diamonds. So that's in a nutshell what I got out of the conclave on day one. It's a bit of a longer summary than I expected, so I apologize if I went on for a bit long, but it's really been a treat so far, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 days. So you may watch this a bit after the fact, whenever we get to post it on social media on diamonds.net, but we hope to keep you posted over the next days and beyond. So God bless, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.